Welcome to the Bangers Only podcast, where Tom Lydon and his band of experts make money talk exciting. Here's your host, Tom Lydon.
Welcome to the Bangers Only podcast. Life is short. We've got to keep things simple. Use your time for what's most important. That's what Bangers Only is all about. I'm Tom Lydon, and joining me today in this episode, we're going to keep it in the hood. I'm happy to welcome my neighbor and friend, John Bishop. Hey, John, thanks for joining us on Bangers Only.
Tom, it's a pleasure to be here, but I got to be honest with you. When I heard Bangers Only, I thought it was Headbangers Only.
Well,
so I was practicing my Ted Nugent last night to get ready.
Good. A couple dance moves, and you had the guitar.
A little guitar solo.
Good. Well, John, as I mentioned in the intro, life is short, and use your time wisely. Over the 30 years that I've known you and your wife, Barbara, you've kind of done just that. Your story's fascinating and heartwarming at the same time. We've got a lot of fun things to dive into today, and I think people are going to be excited to hear about some of your background and missions. But before that, I kind of want to set the stage. So give us an idea, where did you grow up, and talk about like how your family, brothers and sisters, that type of thing.
Okay, well, first of all, as we get into this, remember, it's all about the kids, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about me. And I grew up in a small town in Western Massachusetts. And it was one of those small kind of places, Tom, where you could be the captain of the basketball team and you were kind of a big deal. And you got written up in the papers. But with that, remember, you got written up in the papers for the good things and the bad things you did. So it was that kind of a small town. I'm eighth of 12 kids. 12 siblings, and eighth is a perfect place to be. You fly under the radar. Everything that's ever been accomplished has already been accomplished, and everything that could ever go wrong has already gone wrong. So you are completely under the radar. Fantastic location, good place to grow up.
Yeah. And tell us about mom and dad.
Good, hardworking, folks. Unfortunately, my dad passed away when we were young, and there were still 12 kids at home. So we learned a lot from my mom. I mean, literally from how to make we have a saying that she doesn't still have the first dollar she ever earned, but she does have the change from it. And she taught us a lot of things about money. She taught us a lot of things. I learned to swing a hammer from my mom. And you know me, I can work on pretty much anything. And if that's where that started, learning how to use tools from my mom, that's a heck of a start.
Well, we're great beneficiaries of that, and so are the other neighbors. John's got the best tool set up in the neighborhood, and anytime something goes wrong, you just text John, and he's over there in 5 minutes. It's awesome. So talk about Barbara. Where did you meet? And talk a little bit about her upbringing, if you would.
Interesting. We both come from big families. That was not planned. We didn't know it when we met each other. Barbara has 9 sisters and 2 brothers, so she comes from a family of 11. Interestingly, I met her at work, and that was a long time ago. So a lot of us met our spouses and girlfriends at work. Interesting. Her aunt was my secretary, and so my secretaries introduced us originally. Barb's an engineer from Stanford, so she joined into aerospace like I did. She also went back to school and got her law degree. And she specialized in labor law and particularly human capital acquisition and human capital valuations, like for buying and selling companies. So she got a niche of her own and did very well.
That's awesome. All right, so you were talking about aerospace. I know you had a long, exciting career at Boeing. How long were you at Boeing, and what'd you do?
Yeah, I was with Boeing just shy of 30 years. And I was hired in 1982. I was a senior up in upstate New York at Clarkson University, get my engineering degree. And they were up there recruiting. Aerospace was a big deal at the time. They flew me from upstate New York down to Southern California for an interview and a job trip, and it was a no-brainer. I went and visited the beach in February, and there was no chance I was going back there. So I joined in a industrial engineering program. I spent about half my career in operations, learning how to build airplanes and then building airplanes in different facets. And then from that knowledge, as the outsourcing trend started, I moved over into supply chain management, and ultimately I ran all the international supply chain.
Wow. Okay. So fast forward 30 years. Were you done at that point? So is that when you retired?
Um, you know, I went into the job with low expectations, to be honest with you. My goal going into Douglas Aircraft Company at the time was to be the foreman over the welders. That's all I ever wanted to be. And when I was 25, I was the foreman over the welders. And so everything since then has been icing on the cake. I ended up putting in 30 years, but I knew that 1982 plus 30 years on July 12th in 2012, I was going to retire. I knew that when I started. Um,
Okay. So you retired then, but did I I know it's a loaded question because I know the answer. You didn't stay away.
well, I knew I was done. Okay, I knew I was done with what I always called career one.
Yeah.
Barbara was still in the prime of her career, and her company had just been purchased and by a private equity, and she got a much bigger job located in New York City. So we were thinking about becoming New York City people for a little while, you know, an apartment, no car, that kind of thing. And then just up the road about 50 miles is Sikorsky Helicopter. And Sikorsky had made commitments to start 4 international factories, 2 in India, 1 in China, 1 in Poland. And I had been doing that for a long time. And I had friends up there and they called, and you know how that goes in the industry. We all know each other, and asked me if I would help.
Yeah. And you did. And you put I guess was it 5 years in Sikorsky? A lot of international travel, built out factories. I know in India. And I know that they even named a street after you there, right?
Yeah, my time were at Sikorsky helping India, you know, that was 4 years. But when I was done with Sikorsky, came back to Southern California, back to the hood. And then the folks I was helping in India asked me if I would help them more because they were winning more work. And ultimately, we started 8 greenfield operations. And yeah, the little road that goes between them is Bishop Boulevard.
That's awesome. All right, that's great. So right now, as we sit here today, you're not employed. You are officially retired. Barbara's officially retired as well. Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't like the term retirement.
I know, I know. Like we're gonna
I
get
would
into
say
that.
I stopped working for a paycheck. How's that?
Okay, right. Well, you guys are always going to have your hands in something, and you're having fun. I mean, I know you guys like to travel. You've got a couple motorcycles. You're gutsy and still playing old man basketball. I'm just scared to death. I know you try to get me out there again. I'm just my luck is not going to hang any longer. I mean, I know I'm going to pull something, and that's going to be it. But tell a little bit more about what you like to do for hobbies and travel and that type of thing.
We travel a lot. We kind of have different categories of travel. We do a lot of international. Lately, we've been doing a lot of motorcycle international. So I've done adventure trips to Pakistan and to Colombia, and we've done joint rides through the Alps and through the Pyrenees and things like that. And we also do a lot of travel, as you know, with the to do sporting events. We like, in 2 weeks we'll take off to Indianapolis for the Final Four. Big college and professional sporting events, mostly college. That's a category of travel. Fitness is really important to us. Barbara is takes cooking very seriously, studies and knows the source of the foods and takes it quite seriously. And then fitness and health. So we work out, play basketball, run. It's a busy place around here. People are
It
coming and
is.
going.
It is, and it's really inspiring. Okay, I want to move towards one thing. You mentioned to me when we were out biking this weekend that you took your CFP uh, back when you were in your early 30s. Talk a little bit about that briefly. Why'd you do it? What'd you get from that?
Um, Probably like a lot of your listeners, I became an unintentional investor in 1982. Somebody came in to our group and they had a sign up card for the 401k. And they said, if you sign this card, you get a 6% raise. Now, I had no idea what that meant. I signed the card and all of a sudden I was a 401k investor. And that was good and my career was going good. But around 1992, so about 10 years later, I had a little more funds and I wanted to invest. I didn't know what to do. So at that time, I opened an account with Dean Witter, I believe, and they assigned me a guy who I can't remember, who that guy was.
Gotta get a guy. You gotta
I
have a
got a
guy.
guy.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy called me up, Tom, and he said, hey, I got this great investment. And I didn't know what it was. And he said, the name of it was Discovery Zone. And I didn't know what that was either, but he said it was a good idea, so I did it. About a year later, when I lost my $1,200, which was a big amount of money at the time, I said, I don't like having a guy. It's just not for me. So UCI, University of California, Irvine, offered a CFP program. It was the 9 courses and the test prep and then the exam. And I said, you know what, this can't be too hard. I'm going to go down, I've got an engineering degree. I got a master's degree in business. I don't know how hard this could be, but I'm going to go down and do it. And that set me on a complete different path where I could do all my own decisions. And I had a network.
Yeah, yeah, so you got something from that. Both you and Barbara have been really good about, managing your wealth and that type of thing, which leads us to kind of the guts of what we want to talk about next, which is you put a program together over 20 years ago where you and Barbara helped your sizable family. I mean, with all your brothers and sisters on both sides, nieces and nephews. You put a program together to help finance college education. So run through the details of that. Why'd you do it? What it's all about, and there's specific rules that you follow.
Yeah, Tom, I was actually listening to one of your other earlier podcasts, Brian Portnoy,
Yeah.
and he had a quote that I loved. It said, more is a number, enough is a story. And Barbara and I have always been about enough. We've always been about the story. And so we sat down and we talked and said, we've done well. We've been blessed. We've been blessed with good education, which then created good careers, which now has financial reward. How do we best help our families? And the conclusion we came to was the best way we help our families is by helping their kids. Not by giving money to a sibling that doesn't really need it, but by helping their kids, we can actually help future generations. And so what that turned into at the time was helping them with their education. And the first one was in 2005, the first of the kids that went to college and had no way to pay for it. We just stepped in and paid for it. And we didn't know exactly how to do that. But what we said, just trying to guess the right way, is we'll pay for A's and B's, you pay for C's and below. And as a percentage. So if you get 100% A's and B's, we'll pay 100% of whatever the tuition, board, room, all that was. And a really interesting thing happened immediately. This particular kid was an okay student, kind of ABC student. He never got another C.
Yeah.
Instantly, he became an AB student. And we went, wow, that was interesting. It wasn't anticipated. So that kind of got us moving in that direction.
So a little about the program is you didn't pay for things up front. There's a process. So explain, fast forward to today, what that process is and how the kids can qualify.
Yeah, we had to, at the beginning, it was kind of Uncle John.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that because it was very personal. It's like either Uncle John helps or Uncle John doesn't help or whatever. And in 2018, we kind of formalized much more. And we kind of wrote some guidelines. So it's for the Bishop family descendants. It's reimbursement in nature. So they pay the cost and then we reimburse based on that percentage we talked about with the A's and B's. We did stick with that. Across now 3.5 degrees and 1 professional license, the ratio has been we've reimbursed 96% of all the expenses.
Wow.
So it's not like the kids can't make the grades.
Yeah.
They get it and they can achieve it.
And also as far as financial need, address that.
Yeah, we use the FAFSA form. So we do not, you don't want to get into your siblings and their kids. You don't want to get into their finances. So you just take the FAFSA score. And generally speaking, the families that can afford it, they get it and they help their own kids. The ones that can't afford it, they know we're here. One of the things we did, Tom, was it's one thing to have a fund and to have it available to help these kids, but if they don't know or believe that it exists, it does no good. So in 18, when we were setting up the process, we set up 4 touch points. So we talk to the parents when the kid is born. We talk to the parents at first grade when they start school. We talk to them when they complete 8th grade, and we talk to the kid when he turns 18 or she turns 18. That way they know from us who we are and that we have it covered. And the other big change we made in 18, Tom, was it was kind of geared towards college. And the world, as you know, trying to live in your house, the world needs plumbers, electricians, HVAC, welders. And so we opened it up to cover all the licensed trades.
Wow, that's great.
So, first of all, some kids are just better with their hands and less school, kind of, that's not their thing. But also, let me tell you, the trades make good money.
Oh, yeah.
And they make a lot more money than a lot of the different college degrees that you can get.
That's awesome. So are you seeing overall versus, professionals versus trade, what would be the percentages you're seeing today?
I think it's going to grow because, as people become more aware. And by the way, as the trades become more available, it's they're not available to learn everywhere, but it's probably 1/3 to 2/3.
Yeah.
Right now.
Interesting. And just from a size standpoint, when you talk about keeping in touch with each of the kids along their life cycle, you got, 12 siblings, 11 siblings on the other side. Like, what's that network of kids look like? What's the size?
On my side alone, it's 33 kids.
Wow.
To keep track of. That's not counting my siblings. So there's my parents are called the OGs.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a first gen, and you're going to hear this term again later. Then there's the next gens, which are the nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
The next, and then the next.
They were already starting in the process?
Oh yeah, we already got I got 5 great nieces and nephews.
And you're opening up the same program to them?
We do the exact same thing we talked about. So when those kids were born, we contacted the parents and said, here we are. The other thing we did, Tom, that I thought you'd find interesting is in 2018, when we formalized more, it used to be kind of me making decisions.
Yeah.
We changed that greatly. And that I always want this thing to be run now by 3 generations. So right now it's myself as a first gen, my niece Abby as a next gen, and my niece Ashley as a next gen. So there's 3 gens. As soon as the 4th gen is ready to step in to take an administrative role, then I will step out. I'll be emeritus. I'll be a participant board member, but I won't have a vote.
Cool.
So I'll give guidance and I'll give
Yeah.
opinion, but I won't have a vote, and I'll let these kids run this fund, which is of a sizable value because they have to learn how to invest for one
Yeah.
before they even talk about paying any bills.
Okay. You mentioned on our bike ride Ashley's story. So Ashley is on this governance committee. Um, Share with everybody Ashley's story.
You know, Ashley's special. She is a special kid. Um, she is now an administrator on the board, but she disappeared from the family for a period of time. She grew up in a challenging family, and ultimately moved with foster parents, and we just lost touch of her. She was gone. No, maybe somebody knew where Ashley was, but most of us didn't know. And a very unusual thing happened, Tom, is somehow on her path in her young career, she ended up at Western New England College, and she was a senior and she was graduating. And this is when I was in Connecticut for a while. And she reached out to me to go to her college graduation. And I knew of Ashley, but I hadn't heard from her in 15 years. I had no idea where she was.
And she didn't have anybody to attend, and she reached out to you and wanted to know if you would come.
Yeah, Barbara and I. And of course, of course, we're going to be there for her. She was on the honor roll. She had a special honors banquet the night before. It was a big deal for any kid, and definitely for her. So afterwards, we asked her, how the heck did you ever pay for college? Like, you're a foster. I mean, how did that work? And she told us she had like very large amount of loans, a big number. And so I went back and I've talking to Abby, who's now on the board. And I said, well, Abby, let's talk about this. If we knew about Ashley, would we have paid her school bills? Because that's what this fund is for. And we're like, yes, we would have, but we didn't know about her. So how could we do it? You go, well, should we consider it in hindsight now? And we asked Ashley for her loans and the loan numbers and all the data, and we asked her for all her transcripts. She had all A's. All A's. So Abby and I are looking at it going, well, damn, this is kind of obvious. And we sent the checks to those loan companies. And at the end of the day, this kid went from, high 5 digits of loans to 0. And let me tell you, now that she's with us all the time, we changed her life.
Yeah.
But understand, we did, but at the same time, she's the kid. She did this.
But I mean, think about somebody who's motivated to keep this system in place, to be able to motivate family members. There's a certain amount of responsibility that every participant has to have, and the honor and trust that goes along with that, John. It's got to make you feel really good. I mean, I've got goosebumps just as we're talking about this.
Every time I write one of those checks, Barb and I look at each other and saying, this is the most fun you're ever going to write a check for.
That is awesome. All right, one other thing I want to get to. 5 years ago, you added on a somewhat related program, but separate, where you're kind of coaching the next gen in other areas of life. So talk a little bit about that program. Give us the basics.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there's this population of kids. Just on my side of the family is 33 kids. Now, understand, I say kids, that's ranging now from age 50 down to 0.
Yeah.
There's a heck of a big range. And Barb and I have always been the uncle that you call to ask for, advice. As you know, that we used to have the nieces and nephews come out here, 5 or 10 at a time. So we've always been the cool uncle or aunt with the beach house. That's always a draw. And they used to ask us questions like, hey, what should I put my money in my 401k? What kind of a loan should I get when I buy my house? Should I buy a car or lease a car? We used to have lots of dialogues. And what we found was two things. We were given the same advice over and over. If your population is 33 people, you can't remember what you told who. So you tend to repeat. And then the other thing was they started to invite their friends. So we'd have a conversation about buying a house, and Abby would invite 3 of her Coast Guard friends. And so now the population is starting to multiply. So what we did in 18 is we formalized something that we call the family financial literacy and health. Its basis is kind of a quarterly Zoom. It's mostly the next gens or the next gens. There will be 35, 40 kids on these calls, and we talk about financial topics that are applicable to them. So it's not canned financial advice. It's financial advice specific to next gens.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were talking about it this weekend, an example of somebody starting out and they're getting introduced to this for the first time, and you said, okay, do you have anything? And tell that story.
Yeah, so I'm used to working with people more my age, and so maybe they know what what assets they have or what they where their financial condition is. Now you're working with kids, and while they're smart and they're diligent and they're hard workers, when you ask them, the first couple questions we get into is we do a very thorough self-assessment. They're doing this self-assessment of everything they own, and they're setting some goals, and they're doing a risk tolerance. But when you start that process of what do you own, it's always interesting because, well, I don't own anything. Well, do you have a bank account? Yes, I have a bank account. Okay, so you own something. Do you have more than one bank account? Oh yeah, I have a savings and a checking. Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, and you walk down the path of everything they own, go through all their Venmos and PayPals and all the things that you never thought you were going to talk about. And then you'll get into, well, do you have a 401k? I don't know about that, but I've heard, this is one of the big learnings I've had. But I have a Vanguard. And it's like, you have a Vanguard? Yes, I have a Vanguard. I go, what is a Vanguard? And they go, well, I don't know. I get a statement from them. I don't really read it, but it says Vanguard on it. So I have a Vanguard. And then you have to walk them through like, is it a 401k? Is it a brokerage account? Is it Roth? Is it IRA? Is it, you go through, and it's interesting because what we make them answer is 3 really key questions. I know what I own. So no, I don't own a Vanguard. I have a Vanguard account that's a 401k that's invested in S&P 500. That's what I own, S&P 500. I know what I own. I know why I own it. And that reason is still valid.
Interesting.
Those 3 questions by the time they're done with them, it lights up the whole process.
Yeah. So fast forward, somebody starts like that and talk about maybe seasoned participants today, somebody who's in their 30s, describe a little bit about what they've gotten from the program.
Well, we've been doing this now for 5 years. Okay, so we did a 3-year survey and we did a 5-year survey just to get feedback. And on the knowledge and confidence side, we did questions like, can you tell us what it was like then and what it's like now? So how do you feel your confidence in understanding your financial situation, before, now? And the number's gone from like 15% confident to like solid 100%. How comfortable would you feel giving a friend advice? 15%, 100%. How well do you understand everything you own? Same kind of numbers. But then we did ask a couple of financial questions about net worth. Mm-hmm. And the average net worth at the beginning, because of student loans and things, was close to 0 or maybe even negative. 5 years later, I don't have the exact number, but it's definitely over $200,000 per kid.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Not everybody.
Like,
But
that's a huge number.
And Tom,
especially thinking about
These
Yeah.
are kids that started, the age bracket when we started was 25 to 35. So now they're 30 to 40, right?
Yeah.
That's average wealth at that age for kids that are doing it completely on their own.
Yeah.
They get the
And
credit.
most did not grow up in wealthy families, middle America, learn to work hard, and you brought them along. John, what are some surprises through that you've learned through both these programs? Like what are things that came out of it that maybe you never imagined?
Um, well, first of all, on the downside, I guess, um, I just thought that everybody would want this. Like any kid that age, I know I would have, remember my story about getting my guy at Dean Woodard. I
Yeah.
thought anybody would want this. And the numbers have been solid. 1 in 3 that start the process stick with it. And of the ones that do not, they kind of fall into 2 buckets. Either they come from a good family and maybe they got some wealth in the family and they don't need a safety net and they know it.
Yeah.
So, it's just not a priority of theirs. And another group are the ones I know, it grinds me because I know I can help, is the ones that just don't believe they can make a difference.
Hmm.
And I know I can help them. There's no doubt about it, but they don't believe it yet. Now we have had a thing, and we have started something called an onboarding process for the people that want to join late, and we have had 12 people who dropped and said it's not for me. Come back and say, wait a minute, I got to rethink about this. And so
Oh,
we
that's
have 12
cool.
onboarders, we call them.
That's awesome. Like that's got to be so rewarding. It's that's awesome. Well, so John, when I'm sure people are going to hear this story, what advice would you give people like you and Barbara who are, you know, let's say you're in a position to help. You're in a position to help support the next generation. You want to help make a difference. What are some of the do's and don'ts that you advise somebody who might be in a position like you and Barbara to help out and really have the desire to do it?
Let me start, Tom, with as you call it, retirement, and I call it stop working for a paycheck.
Okay.
We all have a vision of what that's going to look like. And my coaching to these folks would first of all be whatever your vision of your retirement is, it's going to be 50% accurate. And the other 50% is going to be better than you ever envisioned. If you take it on, like you take it on robustly, and that's what we consider this. So part of that process is my first piece of advice is just start. Like we didn't know if the A and B thing was going to work. It seemed like a crazy idea. But all of a sudden it's like 96% of all the kids' grades are A's and B's now. And they weren't in high school, so go figure.
Yeah.
So just start. I have an old saying, just buy the keg, people will show up.
And when you look back on the first nephew that you helped out, I'm sure you'll learn some stuff along the way and you'll learn from the other one. And at any point in time, you could pull the plug, right? You didn't have to do it anymore, but you kept it going. And there had to be some things when you started with that first nephew that were eye-opening and rewarding.
Um, well, along that same line, the second piece of advice was whatever you choose to do, don't overdo it. Don't create contracts and long documents, but put some structure and measure your results. Like I know that 96%. If that number was 50%, we would do something different.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would do. And then adjust as you learn things. That's like, we decided to go into the trades. That wasn't the original plan at all, but we all of a sudden determined it needed to be. So structure, measure, and then engage the next gens.
Yeah.
But don't just inform them, engage them. Like
Have
give
them
them.
buy in. I think for some people, when you think about even thinking about starting something like that, it could be daunting, especially as you're okay at a point where you're, what do you call it? Not working for a paycheck anymore, but I'll call it retirement. It's a lot. It's a big commitment. But if you have others that are invested, maybe have experienced the program and value it to the point where they're willing to put their own time and effort into it, maintaining the integrity and keeping that momentum going, that's probably something that most of us don't think about as we venture into even starting something like this.
I got a feeling from talking to my peers that just sharing is a challenge for some parents. And I think don't just share, engage. Give them an assignment. Zachary and Abby help me run the whole next gen financial literacy and health. They are equal partners. They pitch the material. If they don't know the material, they'll either learn it or I'll teach it to them. So there's instructors, they're participating, they're tracking. And then of course, Ashley and Abby are the leaders, and there'll be another gen soon. As soon as we have a fourth gen person graduate from college or whatever. And then but these kids aren't just kind of sitting around. Kind of like the financial literacy, Tom. It's not entertainment. There's two obligations for participation. One is at the end of each session, there's a couple of actions. And the actions are, so whatever we just taught you, go fix yours, whatever it is. So if we just talked about putting the right beneficiaries on your account, go look up what your beneficiaries are and make sure they're right. And
Yeah.
I'll diverse for a minute. So we taught the lesson on beneficiaries and told everybody to go look at it. And so next session, we always say, so what'd you learn from the actions? And this young man and his wife are sitting on the camera just like we are. And you saw the wife give the husband like this big elbow, right? And I was like, okay, so what happened over there, guys? And the gentleman in this case, he's 35-year-old. He says, yeah, I went to my bank to figure out who the beneficiary is. And it was my ex-girlfriend before I met Colleen. He goes, well, what happened was he opened the account. He had a girlfriend. He named her as a beneficiary long ago. He ends up getting married, turns the account into the joint account for the family. They got two kids. Had he passed away, his ex-girlfriend would have got the money.
Oh my gosh.
And so he's laughing, and the wife's giving him an elbow. And then let me tell you, everybody has a story. And the
Yeah.
stories, as you teach the things and they go and check, just happen over and over. But the second obligation, Tom, of participation, and this was an unintended consequence we never could have dreamed of. Participation requires that you pay it forward. So we're gonna teach you things. So in some way, share it.
Yeah.
Don't just keep it for yourselves. What we never anticipated, Tom, where they're going to share it with their parents.
So have you actually had some parents join the educational
We
program?
have a very strange population curve now. It's a bell bar curve where the majority of the participants are, 25 to 35. And then we have no 40s, no 50s, and then a whole bunch of 60s and 70-year-olds.
Oh, that's great.
And you know what, though? It's interesting because they're learning the exact same stuff of what we taught. What do you have? Hey, what do you have? I have a Vanguard. What is it? I don't know. I had a 401k and then something happened at work when I retired and now I have a Vanguard. And then you look,
John,
Tom, and it's all sitting in cash.
it's awesome. It's amazing. Okay. We got to wrap this up, but if somebody had questions for you, and I don't want to put things on, do you have your own website or do you have a LinkedIn account or something where the people could?
Yes, I have a LinkedIn account, and but I actually, because my websites were all leadership and aerospace
Yeah,
related, I let them go away.
yeah.
I
Good.
have
You re
other more
you
interesting
retired
things
them.
I work on now.
Yeah. So we'll do a link to your LinkedIn that if somebody had a question, if they were interested in maybe learning a little bit more and reaching out to you. Look, first of all, I can't thank you enough. I know that we're going to get a lot of great feedback on this. People often don't do the things that you and Barbara do, so I'm just thrilled to be able to help you tell your story. I thank you for sharing that with others, and thank you for your friendship. And also I'm glad that you woke up on Sunday morning and you weren't sick at all from my terrible cooking.
It was fantastic. Tom, I did want to share one more thing though,
Okay?
is, I did take the formal training on being a CFP.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that have come up over time that that break the CFP training working with these kids. And let me give you an example. We know asset classes: large, medium, small stocks, bonds, currencies, real estate. We had to create a category, an asset category called mad money, because these kids want to be in crypto. They all have a Robinhood. And they have like stuff, and they need to have it in order to talk to their peers. So we created an asset category called mad money. Do anything you want with it, but it should be about 1% of your net worth. Perspective. So you and I know exactly what estate planning is. If you say estate planning to a 25-year-old, they're like, I'm invincible. Why? I'm not going to die, so why would I ever have that discussion? But when you explain to them and put it in the bucket of contingency planning, and maybe you should have a child care guardianship document in place for your child, they go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm
Right?
sure you've got a ton of those stories. And it just continues on. I mean, it's fantastic because what you've done is you've embraced these kids that you care about. You let them have confidence that they can do it and they can be successful. And we're always going to have questions. And ChatGPT can't answer all the questions, right? Not all of them. Some of them, but not all of them. John, thanks. I
All
really,
right.
really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get back out on the bike this weekend.
All right, Tom, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully some of your listeners can benefit from what we talked about.
I'm sure they will. Thank you. We'll
All
talk to you
right.
soon.
Bye.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific investment advice. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results.